really excited to have Morgan Cox join the True Sports Physical Therapy podcast. Morgan, welcome to the freaking party, dude.
Longtime fan, excited to be on here.
Long-time listener. First-time caller, long-time listener.
Long-time listener.
Morgan, this is year 14 in the National Football League. Did you ever think you'd be snapping footballs professionally for 14 years?
Who was that? I was talking about this today with somebody. Actually, I went out and visited the U.S. men's national team. They were practicing here in Nashville, and I was talking to him, one of the guys, and I just said, if you go back and tell several of my teammates in high school that, I would be the one that had the 14-year NFL career, you'd be like, you're crazy. Like, there's no way. But, that's where I found myself. And, I remember even my first year in the league, talking to some other friends, who had been around the league and watched, long snapping for a while and just thought, man, Morgan last 10 years in the league. That blew my mind. Like, I had that did not register in me that could actually happen. And so here I am. It's pretty cool.
Here you are in year 14 and obviously supporting a lively family that I hear in your background. So everyone,
you can hear,
but they're great.
Rudy's calling for me right now.
That's fine. They're great to have on the show. So
yes,
if you didn't know you'd be here for this long, looking back on it, what has been your secret to longevity?
I honestly would deflect a lot of the reason that I've been in the league for this long to other people that have kind of propped me up for the years. The guys that I played with specifically, I came in the league. Billy Cundiff and Sam were my kicker and punter. Sam would be so mad at me if I said kicker and holder.
Good thing he doesn't listen.
Mad. I call it. Yeah, good thing. So. And then Justin came along, and then we were together for so many years. So I would probably immediately jump to those guys. Billy kind of educated me when I first got in the league about taking care of your body, and I saw him doing, all sorts of crazy stuff. Massages every week, and stretches and all this stuff. So I got a pretty quick picture of he'd been in the league, I think 11 years at that time. So I got a quick jump on what it looks like to take care of yourself, late in the later stages of your career. And then Sam Cook, most people don't know Sam as well as we do, but he just presented such a professionalism to me at an early stage of my career that it was something I looked up to, something I wanted to, strive to, and just bought into the culture there with Sam, and then when Tuck came in, just being great at our crafts and just wanting to contribute to the team the best we could. And so I think initially I'm very thankful to have those people kind of bring me into the league in that way from a player standpoint. Now I could go into coaches as well. Jerry Rosberg, Chris Horton, and Craig Ackerman have been my special teams coaches, and they've just set me up for success. And so it's hard, I can self-reflect on discipline and stuff like that, but to me, I'd rather put it on the people that I've been in close contact with and work with on a daily basis.
We can give the people around us all the credit in the world, and I knew you would, Morgan, because that's the dude you are. What would you say that you've honed in on as a secret or a practice?
I think, again, catching the culture and the attitude that Sam and those guys established early on, I really focus on how good I can be at my craft, to the extent that I feel like if I can snap the ball, I feel like that I can snap the ball so well that, Billy, Justin, Randy, and Nick can't miss a kick. And so those are all the kickers that come to mind right off the bat. Can't miss a kick if I snap it so well. Same thing with punters, Sam, Brett, and Ryan Stonehouse. If I snap the ball right in their breadbasket, that's basically where they're dropping the ball from. So I've really focused on my personal accountability as to the high standard I have for myself, and then just chase that. I would say the PT that I've done in order to take care of my body. So longevity is all about durability and uh, toughness in a way. I wouldn't immediately describe myself as tough. I have plenty of
I
aches and
would.
pains that the people around me complain that they hear too much about. But uh, regular soft tissue therapy, um, Rose in Baltimore, just set me up for success. So working with you, working with Rose, in terms of a soft tissue nature, I think is what has helped me with longevity in my career.
Yeah, and what you're really mentioning here is the attention to those details,
Mm-hmm.
that seems to have pulled you along. No one is more detail oriented than Sam Cooke, than Morgan Cox, than Nick Moore. You guys are freaking lunatics when it comes to those things. What are some of the details that you do pay attention to day in and day out?
I could get into the nitty gritty of
Get
long
into it.
snapping.
Get into it.
So the first thing that comes to mind is on field goals. I know you've had Nick on, so I'm sure he's explained to like the laces, my holder, whoever that is. Right now it's Ryan Stonehouse. I want him to catch the ball to where the laces hit him in his right hand for a right-footed kicker. That way, when he sets it down, the laces are already pointed towards the uprights. He doesn't have to move it, so it's just that little bit of, once the ball's down, it really doesn't. There's no extra movement that the kicker has to look to, and so he immediately can focus on his strike point where he's going to hit the ball and put the best foot he can on it. And so the way that I do that is I create the same distance between me and the holder every single time. So if you look at the football field as a giant grid, then I'm going to try and line my feet up at the exact point each time. That way, Stoney right now is on the same point back at the kicking spot, and I'm at the same point. So we create the same distance, and so each snap on a field goal should rotate 3 1/4 times out once it leaves my hand. And so once it does that, Ryan catches the laces, ball goes down, and Nick Folk gets a look at it for as long as he needs to in order to make the kick.
How do you control that amount of revolutions? What do you do with your hands?
That comes down to practice. I know you work with pitchers and a lot, and I'm sure that those guys. I don't know a lot about pitching, but I know those guys, just have the sensation in their fingers that they know when a ball's left their hands, how many spins it's going to make on the way to the thing, and they can adjust that. It's the same thing for me. I've done it so many times where it's just become second nature. And I really, if you were to ask me, say, hey, only rotate it 2.5 times, like that would be difficult for me. But what I would do, I'd change the distance, and so it'd take me a couple times, but I would figure it out.
Come on, bring her on. Bring her on.
Dad is on a call. You wanna see Yoni?
What's up,
Say
Rube?
hi. Say hey,
Hi,
Ruby.
Rube.
say hey, Ruby. Can you go get Mama? No. Okay. Well, either way, so I create the same distance each time that I'm snapping. That way, I know that it's going to rotate that many times, and it isn't. If it does over rotate or under rotate, I know how to change it.
Now
I know how to change it from there.
It's amazing. Okay, now you know where your feet are. Where does that ball go in relation to your feet?
So if the ball is marked, usually is typically marked like right where the hash marks are, and so I usually pull the ball back to where I'm snapping it to, and whether it's you barely notice it, especially if you were just watching on TV or whatever. But it's maybe an inch or two. I pull it back or push it forward, and then that way, in my stance, it looks the exact same way to me. And so I get some comments from defensive linemen or something that, hey, you move the ball around or whatever, and they'll get mad at me. But ultimately, it looks the same. They just, they have their own little tricks too, so I'm not worried about them.
Yeah, don't worry about them. By the way, it's worked so far. Now, how much that's awesome in a vacuum? How much do you change it based upon weather?
Weather changes. So early in the season, you're going to have a lot warmer temperatures. You're going to have a lot of humidity. Grip on the ball is going to be really good. You're going to get really good spin off of your hands. So I usually need to close the distance by a couple inches or so. And then as it gets later in the season, colder weather, it doesn't come off your hands as well. You want to kind of keep some moisture on your hands, but you kind of you take space away. So you need to create more revolutions as the ball's going back. So there's a lot of nuance to it. If it's raining, I've got little techniques to try and somewhat dry the ball off in the point where I'm gripping the ball. Yeah, there's just so many little nuanced things that I get. I've told you before that I forget about even because they're so second nature to me now.
Yeah, but the reason I bring all this to light is because this makes me remember our initial conversations, which is I want to become an expert in exactly what you do and what you need to do. And I think that helps me formulate my interventions. And I think that's decent advice. Obviously, I'm biased because it's the advice I'm giving, but it's you got to understand the patient, the athlete that's in front of you, and exactly what they need to do. The reason I love working with the Wolfpack is no one knows what you guys need to do better than you guys, and so grilling the hell out of you guys for these little nuances is imperative. I think it builds rapport, but it also builds proper intervention. You want to be a sharpshooter with your interventions. You don't want to be a carpet bomber. And
Yeah.
so if I can like boil it down to like one little nuance change, then it's worth it. Then the whole conversation is totally worth it. How many, having heard all these little nuances, and I think you're keeping a lot close to your chest. How many times did Justin Tucker kick the laces in his career while you were snapping the ball to him?
To my knowledge, zero.
Zero.
Yeah, that I don't recall a single one. And now Sam, I can't say that I've been that consistent, but as a team, Sam and I did a great job of making sure that Tuck never had to kick the laces. But I want to kind of touch on your point that you made too, like just knowing the position, and having that experience with you guys. It really develops a trust for you guys. Like you're as invested in my craft as I am, really, because I mean you see us on Sundays and you feel a part of that because you helped us get to that point and make sure we're on the field in that way. And so like when I see you guys and see you in particular, pushing me in a certain way or whatever, that it develops that trust that you're looking out for me and helping me be at my best.
Yeah, and that's what it's about. That's why I went to grad school and accrued all that debt so that I can get to treat athletes like you, and that's a piece of it is developing that rapport and that buy-in. Now you overcame a lot to make it your 14 years, most notably a couple ACL tears. So, if that's me talking about that which is a positive and a must to rehab all things, let's say upper extremity, what do you think are musts or things that you really appreciated that were done by your physical therapist in rehabbing your ACLs?
In my ACLs in particular, kind of listening to me, but also not listening to me. There was definitely times I can shout out Sam Bell for my right ACL. He knew where to push buttons that maybe I wasn't totally on board with, like that my attitude that day. I wasn't like just jacked about just torturing myself with stretching or whatever, but he knew what I needed. And there were other times where he knew where he could push me. And so it was a great back and forth in that way. And so I think as a PT, the best thing to do is to know, again, kind of know your guy on a personal level. Because I would even give Sam a hard time, like, man, you never say great job to me. But then I listen to him talking to other guys, and he's like kind of helping them along and talking to them and everything. And so I give him a hard time about that while we were doing it. And He's like, Morgan, you need different things than these guys do. And so Sam was great about that, and he would push me in ways, and he would encourage me. But then there was definitely times where I needed a kick in the butt, and he gave it to me for sure.
Yeah, and it's tough. Sometimes it can be tough to read the patient and give them exactly what they want. That dynamic is different the way you experience it than a lot of outpatient patients, right? Because you're there every single day. And if I recall correctly, you had a lot of struggle or challenge getting your knee flexion, right? Bending it all the way.
Big time.
And so what were some of the tricks that you found valuable looking back on it that he would employ to say, I know you don't want to do this, but we got to rip your heel to your butt? How do he get you to buy in on that?
He sold it. One, he explained the whole thing to me. So like one of the first things that I tell ACL or knee guys is getting extension. I can still tell it to everybody to this day. Like if you don't get extension right afterwards, you may never get it back because of the way that it heals itself. And so I remember that, and so he drove that home. So we worked on extension. I did the, I forgot it now. I just called it the torture device, where it straightened my leg and stuff. And so he drove that home, and then we always knew we could work flexion. I still work flexion to this day. And shoot, I tore my ACL in 2015, I believe. And so, 7 years later, I'm still working on it. No, 8 years later, do math.
Yep.
Sorry. 8 years later, still working on it. And I think for me, he did such a great job of telling me, this is what we have to do today. These are the markers. These are the milestones that I want you to hit in order to be able to be back on the field in a certain time and be on track to where you can compete for your job and you be at your best. And so with that motivation, he gave me all the tools to say like, okay, this is where I've got to be. And so, and then going forward, there was a number of different ways. It wasn't a lot of fun. Sometimes we had to employ the help of some of my teammates to hold me down. Yep. But we got the work done, and I'm very thankful looking back, because I'm still in the league right now because of Sam's dedication and his care for me.
Yeah, and you're touching on a great point, something that I try to make very, very often. There are a few things that a patient always has to know about the rehab process. One is what they're going to do about it. What is Morgan Cox going to do about his knee? He's got to do this exercise and that exercise, use this machine. What am I going to do about it, the therapist? So I'm going to bend them appropriately, or I'm going to give them this exercise. That's why you're going to come back. But another very important piece of those like big tenets that I preach is the patient has to know where they are in the entire scheme of things, right? And
exactly.
So what are those milestones, and how do you make the patient know it? It's awesome, Morgan, that you're one of the better educated athletes that I've come across in all things, but specifically in terms of health and strength and conditioning. But how do you meet them where they are and explain to them, this is why extension is so important? I mean, you quoted it exactly the way I try to quote it to patients, which is you have to get extension, right? And then later comes flexion. But he did a great job of instilling that on you. So that definitely sticks out as something that's worth repeating to all the sports PTs out there, is educate your patient where they're supposed to be and where they currently are, and what is the patient doing about getting them to where they need to be, and what is the therapist doing about it. And that creates a team environment where you guys are kind of pulling in the same direction, therapist and patient.
Yeah, I would say, like you said, I mean, if you consider me one of the better educated guys, it's because of that. He brought me along in the process and educated me along the way. I did a little bit of research myself, but I tell a lot of guys now, if they get hurt, obviously there's the mental aspect, there's the emotional aspect. I'm like, man, I'm out, whatever. I say, take the opportunity to learn about your body and learn about what it takes to be back on the field, not only with this injury, but also to keep yourself healthy going forward. And whether it's flexibility, it's tissue work, it's just exercises and strength. And that was the biggest thing that that Sam did for me, that you did for me. I think of Monica Baker back in 2011 that was working with me on my left ACL. We had a progression, and I got such a great education because they were willing to tell me along the way and not just say, this is what you got to do today. And they would give me back up the reasons of like, this is what it's going to lead to. This is how it's going to help you down the road.
Yeah, and I remember you sharing a story about Rose Kalas, who you mentioned previously, your massage therapist while you were here in Baltimore, how it seemed like she did a bunch of legwork before she even met you.
Yeah.
Right? So
That was the
talk about
coolest
that.
thing. Yeah, that was the coolest thing to me about Rose. And she shows up. I remember it was May of 2010. I had just gotten into the league, and I'm still in the hotel, like in the team hotel doing OTAs and all that stuff. And that's where Billy had kind of said, hey, I got this massage therapist. She's great. Tissue manipulation, all that stuff. And it'd be worth it for you to, see her. Told me the price, and I was like, I don't have that,
You
I haven't
always say
played
that.
yet, whatever. But yeah, I do. But anyway, so I bit the bullet, called her up, and she shows up, and she puts down this like packet in front of me, and I'm like, what's this? And she goes, I found this online. I didn't really know what all like long snappers do, but like I found this thing online. And she starts to open it up. She's like, I think you use this, and this muscle, and it was blah, blah, blah. And like, I'm like, awesome. Like I didn't know any of this stuff, but to me, that's what sold me on her so quickly. I mean, right out of the gate, I could tell her attention to detail, her care, because I've had many massage therapists, that I've worked with, since then, I know they've got a schedule to keep and I know everything, but there's a certain aspect of like, it's almost like a motherly care of like the job is done when the job is done. It's not when the time, when the clock goes off.
Mhm.
So Rose would always check on me, always did such a phenomenal job. And I still text her to this day of like, hey, you're not going to London, are you? Because I play the Ravens in London. And it's like, you're not going to London, are you? You can have some
Right.
free time. No, she's not. But anyway,
But
yeah,
but that attention to detail and the lesson there is do your homework as the provider. Know who you're
right.
about to see, and it doesn't mean you have to know 3 1/4 rotations from snapper to holder, but it does mean you should know, hey, this is a snapper. He's got a hinge here. He's got to create
Mm-hmm.
tension there. Here
Mm-hmm.
are potentially the muscles that are at play. Similarly, once you come up with a diagnosis. So I remember at some point, you and I were dealing with some medial epicondylitis, which is inner elbow pain, which is super common in pitchers because they're always flicking their wrists. I haven't treated a million long snappers, but it would make sense that long snappers come across this as well. But the fact that I'm able to know, hey, he's got a hinge here and then produce force from fingertips in that position, if you do your homework and know what a long snapper has to do, now you can start to relate and
Mm-hmm.
relay proper information to you. So let's walk through that and kind of dissect that a little bit. When you were dealing with that medial epicondylitis or the ongoing elbow pain, there's no way away from flicking your wrist. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Right. Yeah.
As a
I
long
can't do
snapper.
what I do without, just using that constantly.
Right. So
So,
how do you stay on top of these overuse injuries, knowing
mhm.
that that's what you do for a living?
Yeah, I think, kind of going back to what you said, like when we would work together, you would have me get into the position that I was in, and we would work through that. And you made sure and understand what's all at play. And I'd, go through slow motion of like where my elbows are contacting, where my hands are pulling through, and all that, that kind of thing. But we did such a great job of kind of talking back and forth of like what's hurting, what needs to be warmed up prior to starting that. And I remember, the flossing we did. I remember, a lot of the different exercises with the dumbbells out and in with my grip, and just all the things that are at play. Because, you've stressed it to me, Rose has stressed it to me, Sam has stressed it to me. The body is connected all over, from your toes all the way up to your shoulder, down to your fingertips. And when you grasp that and you understand that, like what you guys did such a great job of helping me to do, you're like, everything's connected in some sort of way. So this is where the pain is manifesting, but this is where maybe the problem is. And so understanding that and going through that with you guys, and then giving me exercises to help to combat, that overuse in that one particular area, or just kind of knowing that, like, even though the pain is coming from this area, this is actually where the problem is. And so you're overusing, or maybe your toes hurting, or which is causing your shoulder to hurt, blah, blah, blah. We would work through exercises, and it just helped me, gave me the confidence to know that, like, no matter what pain I was going through, ultimately, once I got on the field, everything was going to be okay, because I knew how to progressively work it up and get ready. I would say, if I'm not ranting here, going into the off season, understanding that I'm going to get in a season and I'm going to just use these muscles over and over and over and over. And so doing much more or much less specific work and more general strength work has helped me through a lot of the years too. Guys are like, well, do you snap all the way through off season? I'm like, no, I barely touch a ball if I can help it, because I know what's coming once, July 27th hits. I'm going to be snapping, 50 balls a day at a minimum. And so I'd rather build up all the other muscles around it, it's so I can have that general strength, because once it comes to that specific, there's no turning it off.
Yeah, yeah, because you can't get away from that. So I think there's a lot of value there. It's also, I think about all the medial epicondylitis or golfer's elbow that I've rehabbed. Very few of those athletes overuse that muscle while their head is below their knees.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But it's super unique, because we know that the nervous system needs to function appropriately, and your nervous system is going to function differently if you're hanging upside down and trying to use your nervous system than if you're upright and your hand is up over your head. So just understand, like you said, kind of understanding that position is definitely new. And don't be afraid as the clinician to lean on things that have worked. No, I haven't rehabbed a million long snappers. There aren't a million of you guys. But I've rehabbed this pathology before, and what can I pull on to help with that? Sometimes I see newer clinicians that are working with NFL athletes, and they get all kind of nervous about it. But if you take a step back, it's like, wait, you have seen this. That's
the main thing I knew when I had elbow, wrist, shoulder pain or whatever. I know that you have worked with baseball players. Same thing with, like I said, my PT back in Memphis, Monica Baker. I remember she had baseball players coming through her practice and stuff. So that kind of relation of, like, well, I may not be doing this, but I am doing this. You know what I mean? Like, just in a different way. And so knowing that those muscles can be used the same way. And I remember, like, I remember worrying that I had, like, Tommy Johns or something like that, just because, like, athletes, listen to other what's going on. But then once I talked to you, and once we had a plan going forward, you lose all that, like, nervousness, and it's all about, confidence and then the discipline of, like, taking care of your homework, as you would always ask me about. You do your homework, right?
Yeah. And the answer is always yes. The answer is always yes with you.
Regardless of whether I did or not.
I don't believe that. Okay, so if that's some of the clinical pearls, let's talk a little bit professionally speaking. You've been doing this for 14 years, and every single year there's someone younger, there's someone cheaper. How do you continue to stay at the top of your game? How do you deal with that pressure and uncertainty, professionally speaking?
I would say, professionally speaking, I just kind of keep my head down. Again, the attitude in a long snapper is if no one knows your name, you're doing your job. And so my attitude, I remember somebody told me when I first started, coaches sleep well at night if they don't have to worry about their long snapper, and or sleep a lot better, I should say, at night if they don't have to worry about their long snapper, because, like, that's the last thing you want to have to worry about. So, not getting complacent with anything, and just understanding that, going about my routine each year, and understanding what I need to do in order to compete at a high level still, even at being in the top 10 oldest guys in the league now, having to, keep myself in a specific shape, knowing what the season is going to demand of me. So I try not to worry too much about what other long snappers are doing, or what younger guys are doing, and just kind of focusing on what has gotten me to the point that I'm at. Even to the point of heard golfers that don't watch each other's swings while they're in a round. And I kind of adopted that a long time ago. I remember watching another long snapper in I think my second year, watching another long snapper snap in pregame. And I was like, oh man, he's doing this and that. I was like, I need to try that. And this is in a game. And I ended up having a kind of a low snap. So from then on out, I kind of determined that I was never going to watch another snapper. And it's not out of disrespect. I was just never going to watch him in the game. I watch tons and tons of film. I watch every snap every week. And so it's not about what I can or can't.
Of your snaps. You watch all of your snaps.
I watch my snaps. I watch all the other guys snapping too. I want to see how they're doing and what they're doing. If they are doing something well, then I want to pick it up. And it's just I guess what I mean is, like, when I'm in a competition, I don't want to adopt a new methodology in the middle of competition. I'm going to focus on me and focus on what's gotten me to that point. And then, later on down the road, if I feel like something needs to be fixed, I've got a weak area, I'll look at somebody else that's doing it really well and go and adopt that.
At what point did you realize this is what works for me? I need to live in these 4 feet.
Ooh, I would say I learned that probably early on. It's always really kind of been my attitude, regardless of what area in life, or, it is what I do, long snapping, but I see it in a lot of other places, like other aspects of my life. I want to find out who's doing things the best, and then, like, why are they the best at it, and then adopt their methodology. I saw something about Kobe Bryant. He had a similar, and I'm not,
very similar.
Kobe Bryant,
very similar,
yeah, especially athletically, but
yes.
Attitude wise, I think it's a good approach to life of thinking of, like, who's doing this the best, and then how can I, chase what they're doing and figure out their methodology. And so for me, that's been the case in long snapping. When I go back to college and I reflect on college, I came into college and there was a guy that was doing the field goal snaps, Adam Miles, and then there was a guy doing the punt snaps, Ryan West, and they were both very good at what they did, respective to their, field goal and punts. And so I was like, okay, how does Ryan do what he does, or how does Ryan do what he does blocking wise on punts and field goal, and then field goals? How does Adam do what he does? And just try to, craft my style and make it my own. But because I had those two examples right as soon as I got in college, I knew I had the tools because I'd gotten to that point. But then learning how they were successful, and then kind of emulating them from that point out.
And by the way, that is very Kobe-esque, because I think, like, every summer he would sit down and say, what do I want to add to my game? What little nuance can I add to continue to push myself forward? And it sounds like that's what you did at Tennessee, right? When you were able to witness that?
Yes, absolutely. I went when I got to college, and I saw those two guys doing it so well. And that's when I learned about the laces that Adam, not to dive into technique too much, but Adam was using mostly arms. He took away most of the variables, all the variables he possibly could, and he was just snapping with his arms. He was a very good baseball player, and so he knew the wrist flick really well, and he'd rotate that ball exactly how it needed to be. And so I was like, man, he can do it. I can do it. Like, I just got to spend time doing it. And so then that's where the work comes in. You gotta spend time doing it. If you can't just, like, look at it like, oh yeah, I'll just do that. Like, that doesn't work like that. It's like Ryan's footwork was so good in blocking. So I'm like, how do I get my footwork to look the same way?
Okay. So you've played Ravens and Titans, but you've spoken to people all the way across the league. So from a organizational standpoint, what are some of the things that you truly value as it pertains to strength and conditioning and rehab that would make the ideal setting for you to stay healthy?
I think having the two departments communicating very well is a very key aspect. In the same way that the client and therapist have to communicate, you want to be able to communicate the strength program and the training program as well, just because they're so intertwined just like I spoke about before, I have some specific movements that maybe, I've got some aches and pains from, but then I also need general strength as I go into the weight room, and making sure those don't cross over too much where, they're not. And so I've really appreciated that, especially here at the Titans, that those guys communicate so well. I've gone through some things that they've done a great job of helping me get and be at my best. And so communication is key from that standpoint. But then also, again, I hate to keep harping on it, but just knowing the athlete, Todd Torricelli and Frank Piriano both do a great job of, coming to me, knowing, what my position is, what I need, and helping me be at my best, make sure I'm not setting myself up for an injury somehow, and they pay attention. So, I mean, I hate to simplify it, but just knowing the athlete is heck, 90% of the battle, I feel like.
Simple is always better. So you don't have to apologize for that. But but I think you're right. And I think we lose that sometimes. And I think us PTs, or maybe it's the accomplished strength coach, we choke when it comes to that. Like, we think we know everything. And I think the person who pays the price oftentimes is the athlete. When the PT says, stick to my program, or the strength coach says, stick to my program, you got to be, and even if you're in the outside, like in the private setting, like I am, you got to trust your strength coaches, or know your strength coaches, find them, become friends with them, know who knows what they're doing, and you can really collaborate with, as opposed to just staying in your own goddamn silo. Freaking hate those silos. Stop putting us in silos. It is tough. It is tough. Yeah. Can you share with me a story when maybe Sam Cooke kind of put you in your place as a younger player and opened your eyes to how you really needed to focus?
Oh, goodness. Everybody loves this story. So
how many people have you told this story to?
Lots.
Great. So it's no problem with you sharing it.
No, it's not. It also makes Sam look like kind of a jerk, which, I mean, I guess he's probably not mad about it. No, to me, it's a testament to his attitude, what I spoke about earlier. But anyway, so I get into the league. I'm pretty fresh, and I'm in my second year, still trying to figure things out, sophomore season. And I guess we went down to St. Louis. So that's how long I've been in the NFL. We're playing in St. Louis. And we go through our warm-up. I'm just kind of having an off warm-up. I don't really feel it. We go in to the locker room, kind of stretch and do the rest of our kind of pregame routine, come back out. And it's kickoff is in 4 minutes maybe. And the stadium is full. I mean, they're about to bring the flags out for the national anthem and everything like that. And so Sam and I usually got like 5 or 6 punts in. Well, I snap one, and punt goes over my head. It's fine. And I'm like, hey, was that okay? He's like, yeah, it's all right. And then I snap the next snap, and it's at his left knee, which is where my miss had been for the most of the warm up. And all of a sudden, I'm looking up to like see where the punt is going over my head, which is usually what happens. And I feel something hit the back of my helmet, and my head jumps forward. And I realized that Sam had basically taken the snap and crow hopped into this throw and threw it right back into the middle of the back of my head. I mean,
and he is a cannon.
Props to him. Yeah, I mean, Sam, especially at the time, was only behind Flacco in terms of arm strength. And so for him to like just grab it, crow hop, and then put it, on a dime in the back of my head. And I was like, what? And he's like, well, I can't say, snap the effing ball.
Yeah.
And because he showed me where it was, and I was like, I'm sorry. And like 2 minutes later, we kick off and we get through the game. And, I honestly don't even remember the game. I think he
concussed
probably should have been in protocol for that. But yeah, it just, like I said before, it set the stage of like, this is what the standard is. And I'm not going to allow you to be anything less than what, the standard is.
And also he knew what and how to push your buttons by then, right? And he
Oh,
knew you
absolutely.
he knew you wouldn't wilt. He knew you would come back and kind of be able to get through the game. So it's
I
just
think if I did, then he would have had another snapper. He would have done it too, and then he would have found somebody that didn't wilt. So, no, I'm kidding. We were close friends at that time, and he knew that he could lean into me, and that attitude carried us through, the 11 years that we played together. So,
it's I can't even imagine going to work with that guy for 11 years because I feel like
I loved every second of it.
I know
I
you
know a
did.
lot of people can't believe it, but I loved every second of it.
And it's relentless, but it's how you stay in the league for 18 years or however many years he did it, right?
I mean, just the attitude that Sam had, and we don't hate to go on this soapbox, but just the attitude Sam had has carried me into so many different aspects, of life. And I still call him on FaceTime if something's going wrong in my house or whatever. He's a do it all guy, and is chasing greatness at all times. And so I really am thankful and blessed to have him in my life for that reason.
Yeah, and it's a sign of a great teammate. And so, like even in the professional setting, when I'm working with PTs, it's like I'm looking for PTs to throw that ball at the back of my head.
Yeah.
I just had
There's probably other ways to do it. You don't have
maybe
to have that
maybe
as
you
long as
try
you have a
that.
helmet on.
Yeah, you're exactly
Yeah.
right. But I've had PTs kind of put me in my place as an owner of a company to say, dude, you need to focus on this, or I
Hmm.
need you to focus on that. And that's really gone a long way. And it's a matter of like, can you take that and get better for it? Obviously you
Hmm.
could. And he freaking knew that. Okay. Tell me of all those things, what do you wish PTs or strength coaches, what do you wish we did more of?
Ruby's back. Um,
Ruby, what do you wish strength coaches did more of?
um, what do I wish
What?
PTs and strength coaches did more
Yeah.
of? Uh, that's a tough question, man. I think you guys, especially you in particular, do a great job of checking in with me and keeping me accountable. Um, I would say probably accountability would be the best thing,
Yeah.
because oftentimes, like, athletes get in their routine, or they get in kind of like a lull, or just the way the season goes is just the routine and the monotony of the season, and just the checking in kind of jolts you back into like, okay, are you doing this? And we're like, well, no, I slacked off. I didn't do it this one day, and then I didn't do it the second day or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, I would say y'all are as much a part of the team in terms of like my team, as anybody that I'm actually playing next to, because you're holding me accountable to that standard, holding me accountable to that day in and day out routine that's going to make me great. And so again, it goes back to caring about the athlete, caring about who he is and what his goals are. So I would say accountability would be the softball for me, just to say that would help. That helps athletes, just because a lot of times we get in our own heads and we're thinking about a performance or whatever, and so we skip something, or we, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah.
Well, okay, but also as a note, we the therapist or the strength coach, we're judged by how well you guys do.
Hmm.
And so I think too often we say, I gave the guys exercises. He didn't do
Hmm.
them, right? And it's like,
Hmm.
think about we're going to be judged on an outstanding outcome. We want an outstanding outcome. And sometimes it takes a text message to say,
Yes.
did you do it?
Hmm.
And then everyone wins. Then the
Hmm.
therapist looks good because the patient's doing well. And
Hmm.
the athlete wins because they're doing what they do. So that's
Hmm.
really freaking good advice, Morgan Cox.
And then it comes back to, like, at the end of the day, it's the same reason that I refer people to you that are in Baltimore. I mean, I refer people because, like, I know you're going to care for them the way you care for me. And so, I mean, it just exponentially helps you, because, I mean, if you have one patient that you're helping out and that you spend time on and you care about, I would be difficult to convince that guy doesn't turn five more clients into you to, like, this is how he cared for me. This is how he got me better. Maybe this didn't work, but then we worked on something else. And so it just carries on from a business aspect, it's perfect because it was the same with Rose. Like, dude, you will not find a better massage therapist than Rose Calas, and I tell everybody that because there was that motherly aspect of like the job is done when the job is done. It's not when that time ticks off the clock or when you check out.
Yep, for sure. That's awesome. Okay, Morgan, there's so much wisdom in some of your answers to that, so I really appreciate it. That brings us to our lightning round, Morgan.
Here we
Cox.
go.
You ready?
Yeah.
Buckle up. Here we
Buckle
go.
up. Ready.
Quick answers. What have you changed your mind on in the last 5 years?
What have I changed my mind on in the last 5 years?
Like my 10-year-old says, Dad, why do you always repeat the question?
I don't know what I've changed my mind on in the last 10 years. I've changed my mind on, I'm trying to think athletically, like getting down the field that I used to just be a guy, and I'm trying to be in the mix, and not just running down the field. I want to be in the mix. It hasn't worked out in terms of numbers wise, but for a long time I was just a guy, but I'm trying.
You're trying. Okay. That's athletically. In life, what have you changed your mind on in the last 5 years, not 10 years? Don't change the question, Dad.
Last 5 years. This isn't very lightning of me.
Nope.
Nutrition wise, I would say, what was it, 3 off seasons ago, I focused on nutrition, and it changed a lot. It changed a lot about my body composition. People were commenting, I looked, more in shape. I wasn't as like, what was the word? Like flubby or whatever, I spent an off season focusing on nutrition, and understanding meal prep and not just snacking, so to speak. And I gained a much bigger understanding of like what makes my body tick from that standpoint. And, I'm not perfect, but I care a lot more about the quality of food and the type of food that goes into my body.
That's awesome. Okay.
That's the biggest change for sure.
Okay, there you go. That's a freaking answer. What's the largest misconception fans have about playing in the NFL?
That it's, if I had to guess, it's not all glitz and glory, and that we don't care about fantasy football as much as as much as they think we would. No, I would say the glitz and glory would be the answer there. That it's not all fast cars and clubs and all that stuff. Like, I mean, you saw Ruby come in here a couple times. It's I came home and folded laundry yesterday and did my own laundry and fixed dinner. That kind of Lauren fixed dinner. We had dinner together. I would guess that we're not all just like studying our playbooks all the time. So
yeah. That hit me when I was working with a guy named Jeremy Zutall. Remember that guy? What a mensch.
Awesome guy.
And I said to him, I'm like, hey, can you come in, Tuesday at whatever, 3:00? And he's like, nah, I got to go to work. I'm like, what? Like, you got to go to work? Like, you play in the NFL.
Yeah,
It is. It's freaking work. It's like you guys show up in an office, and that's the way the greats approach it. So that was like a big light bulb for me.
For sure.
What is the largest misconception that people might have about rehabbing in the NFL?
If I had to guess, people probably think that it's like that there's this just like advanced technology that we all have in the training rooms and that kind of thing. When it boils down to it, we have great care for sure, and it's day in and day out. But I mean, rehab in the NFL is, again, kind of going back to your job. It's your job to be at your best. And so there's no magic pill or anything that anybody's taken. It's just work. And
you're taking pills. They're just not magic.
They're not magic. Yeah, they might be taking pills. A lot of guys are trying to work away from that. But just the work that guys put in. It's not it's discipline. It's work ethic. It's yes, it is directed, and your quality of care is very strong. But I mean, like you said, you work from the private industry, so and we all come see you for second opinion and extra work. And there's no reason that people can't, come and find you and other PTs that are going to give great quality care, but then it just becomes about the work that they put in.
Yeah. I noticed that the time constraint is something that I wouldn't have thought. Like, you guys have hours of meetings, then you're on the field, right? Then you're doing whatever. Like, there's only a certain amount of time. Everyone still only has 24 hours. So originally I thought that you guys are just like on a table all day trying to get better. And it's just not the case.
Yeah, I was in last year for my rehab at 6:30 a.m. And so because my drive is a little bit longer, I had to wake up at 5:15, and then you're at work until 4:30, 5 o'clock. And then you come home and you got to get in bed early because you're getting up at 5:15 a.m.
Right. Yeah, it's real life. Okay, last but not least, one biblical character, not named Jesus, that you would want to get a beer with.
That I would want to give a beer with. I would want to get a beer with, the easy answer is Solomon, because he's the wisest man on earth.
What are you asking him?
Everything. What made him write Ecclesiastes? What made him, what was his muse for Song of Solomon? And, I would say, Job would be another one that I would want to sit down with, because Job, had it all stripped away from him. He still remained faithful to God and was giving it all back, and so what faith looked like from that standpoint, to trust in him and not turn his back on God.
Yeah, pretty amazing. What do you think made him write Ecclesiastes, Solomon?
I think that Solomon saw everything that the world had to offer, and that was his outpouring of like what it meant, what the world meant. And I honestly don't know. That's why I would ask him.
That's why you want to get. Yeah, that's why you would ask him. It's amazing that he saw it all and he still had these crises of faith, right? You would think the smartest guy in the world. You would think, of course, he knows faith. Even he questioned. So when Morgan Cox questioned, how obvious and normal is that? It's okay to question.
Faith is just that. It's faith.
Faith is just that. It's faith. Put that on a t-shirt. On the back of that t-shirt, put a 46. I'm buying that t-shirt.
There you go.
Morgan, you've been a revelation. How's that for a biblical term? You have been
I appreciate that.
Revelation. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, for sharing your history, and just what makes you great. I think it's so obvious. Thank you so much for sharing it. Give me your Instagram handle, because you just gained 1 million sports PT followers.
That's awesome. Morgan Cox 46.
That wasn't taken? I think Nick Moore took that. No?
No, I got it. On both Instagram and X, Twitter, whatever.
X, I love it. Morgan, thanks for your time. Thanks for your wisdom. Appreciate
it. Enjoyed it.